Hello, my dear students. Welcome to the MEMONEET. Myself, Ritik, I am your biology SME. So today we will be studying about the very fascinating topic or very fascinating chapter, that is the plant kingdom. So before getting into the plant kingdom, I just wanted to I could. Hello, my dear students. Welcome to the MEMONEET. Myself, Ritik, I am your biology SME. So today in this video, we will be discussing about the plant kingdom. Fine. So before getting into the plant kingdom, I just wanted to share a few details about the NTA PYQ book as well as the Brahmastra test series. So if you still don't know what is this NTA PYQ book, NTA PYQ book MEMONEET, it consists of all the questions of the NEET, from 2019 to 2024. So every questions have been segregated, then they have been, classified based on which chapter they belongs to, and again which topics they belongs to. So it is 100% updated based on the 2025 syllabus, and it is clearly, accurately, it has been referred from the NCRT textbook itself, and it covers all the questions as well as it has all the details. That is, even a crisp explanation is also given, as well as complete detailed explanation which from and which page number it belongs to and which topic it belongs to. Everything has been explained. So another one thing is there are Brahmastra test series. So this is actually a planner of the Brahmastra test series. I hope you already aware of the Brahmastra test series 1 as well as 2 and 3. So you have already gone through this 3 test series. So Brahmastra test series is actually a series of tests that where it covers both 11th as well as 12th chapters simultaneously. And yeah, this lecture video is also related to the Brahmastra test series. We have our own Telegram channel where everyday based targets will also be given with respect to their specific subjects and all. So if you still have not enrolled or you have not joined our Telegram channel, make sure the description link is in the message box. So yeah, join our Telegram channel. And if you have still not subscribed for this Brahmastra test series, yeah, subscribe for it. So as I have told, before, the entire living organisms, they have broadly classified under the system proposed by R.H. Whittaker. That is, he proposed, or he suggested the five kingdom system of classification. So this is actually interrelated to the biological classification. That means in the last chapters, if you still remember, we have actually studied about the two system, classification, then the three system of classification, and this five kingdom system of classification. So as you guys already know, that five kingdom system of classification was actually proposed by the R.H. Whittaker in 1969. So before that, there were two kingdom system of classification where they were considering only plant as well as animal. So that was based on their morphological appearance, right? So, but later on, they understood that certain things and all cannot be classified only in plants or animals. That's why they were forced or they were made to place in the separate kingdoms. So that five kingdom system of classification came. So five kingdom system of classification normally consists of Monera, Protista, fungi, kingdom Animalia, as well as the kingdom Plantae. So early what they used to do in the early system of classification, they used only the gross superfi. See, that means basically they used to, characterize based on their morphological characteristics, such as based on their color, number, shape of leaves and all. So as I've told that they have actually classified the plants based on like herbs, shrubs, and trees based on their heights, based on their leaves and all, right? So they used to, consider only morphological characteristics, like what are their height and the shape of the leaf, as well as the color of those plant. So whereas, so they were mainly based on the vegetative characteristics. Vegetative characteristics in sense, um, or the androecium structure. So based on their vegetative characteristics or androecium structure, so they were been classified, which was actually given by Linnaeus in the earlier days. So such systems were artificial. That means they separated the closely related species since they were based on few characteristics. So the artificial system gave an equal weightage to both vegetative as well as sexual characteristics. So this is not acceptable since we know that often after the vegetative characteristics are mostly easily affected by the environment. So that means there were some other animals or organisms also. They used to go with the vegetative mode of characteristics or reproduction and all. So they do not come under the plant kingdom. So that's why what happened, they started to bifurcate the entire kingdoms, or and they have grouped it based on their morphology, characteristics, and everything. So later on, what happened? Again, the natural classification system, it got developed, which means based on their natural affinities among the organisms, and by considering those all the characteristics, that means not only the external features, but also the internal features. What are the internal features here? Internal features matlab it could be their a cell structure or anatomy, embryonic development, and phytochemistry, that means their chemical composition and all. So based on these characteristics also, by considering these characteristics also, they have classified the living organism based on the different kingdoms. So in that way, such a classification for flowering plants was actually given by George Bentham as well as Joseph Dalton Hooker. So these are the two scientists who actually classified the flowering plants, okay, based on all these characteristics. So this is very important point. They may or they may not, but almost okay, they could ask in the NEET. So at present, the phylogenetic classification system based on evolutionary relationship between the various organisms are also acceptable. See, you should always remember that all the chapters are interconnected to each other. So, Abhi, like when I'm explaining you about the plant kingdom, that means we are actually deriving the plant kingdom from the biological classification. Because now plant kingdom is actually a part of five kingdom system of classification, right? So that means whatever the rules that they have considered while dividing them, by placing the individual organisms, the same thing goes to the plant kingdom also. So phylogenic classification, that means, see, where you have studied this term, where you have studied this term and actually living world. Yes. So you have studied this term in the living world. So phylogenetic classification is actually a kind of a study where you are trying to classify the living organisms based on their evolutionary relationship between the living organisms or between the organisms, okay. So various organisms. So what might be the common ancestors? Do these two organisms have common ancestors? So this classification, this studies actually comes under this phylogenetic classification. Okay. So this assumes that the organisms, based on those, we will be assuming that the organism, whether it belongs to the same taxa, has common ancestor or not. Yeah, and this becomes one of the most important when there is no supporting fossil evidence. That means if the organism is not living, presently the organism, you are not finding them in anywhere. Then what happens? So there, when the organism's existence itself is not there, and you want to know whether that there is the present organism, does it belongs to some extinct organism or what? So that time, this supporting fossil evidence, that means the fossil evidence becomes very important. Clear? Then, even today in the modern world, if you consider, The numerical taxonomy, which is now easily carried out using computers, is based on all observable characteristics. Number and codes are assigned to all the characters and the data are then proceeded. That means what happens if you have around 100 organisms, okay? So everything is been stored now. So if you find any organism that you want to know whether there is any interrelationship between the existing organism and all, so those characters which you know right now about one specific animal, so if you upload that in the computer, okay, based on those things, so it is going to tally the similarities with the existing organism and the data it will provide. Okay, so that is what I have explained in the last. So in this way, each character is given equally important. At the same time, hundreds of characters can be considered. So for example, if you found any, suppose a organism you have found. So now you want to know whether these character has been existed before with any of the other animals and all. So now what you do is you have noted down all the characteristics which you have observed about this animal and you will upload it into the data. So what happens now, the process will happen. So where the data will be consisting around thousands to lakhs together of animals, okay, or plants, suppose. So, and it has all the characteristics data also. So now it is going to interlink or it is going to see whether these character is suitable or whether these character is somewhat similar to the existing characters or not. So based on that, so it is going to give the report. So this becomes very easy for a biologist to study about the organisms. Then cytotaxonomy, that is based on the cytological informations like chromosome number, structure, behavior, and chemotaxonomy that are used in the chemical constituents of the plants to resolve confusion are also used by taxonomists these days. That means so to know the in detail about a plant or animals. So since it is the plant kingdom, we will consider or we will just concentrate on the plant. So to know more in detail about the plant, what happened? So there are another two things. One is cytotaxonomy is one subject, and another one is chemotaxonomy. So these two are actually used. So what you are going to do, you are going to study in detailed characteristics. As I said before, what they used to do, they were only considering the morphology of the plants. But now what we are actually considering, that means what actually the biologists and scientists are considering, not only the external features, but also the internal features. Okay, so internal features matlab, so they could be their chromosomes variations, chromosomes number, chromosomes variation, their structure as well as the behavior. So when it comes to even in depth or in detail, so they are even considering the chemical constituents, okay, between the two different plants to resolve the confusions, to know exactly where this plant belongs to. So yes, nowadays what is happening? Advances is happening in the science. So each and every minute detail has been considering while you are studying any individual organism. So this is all about the introduction, bacha. So even in introduction, you know they can actually ask you based on this assumptions theory or some of the terminologies and even this part also as a statement based questions. Okay, so whether the given statement is true or false, you need to identify. So in these types of question they may ask. So yeah, we know the five kingdom system of classification. Among the five kingdom system of classification, the plant kingdom is one, right? So again, this plant kingdom, it has some groups. So totally we have five groups, plant kingdom. So the first one is algae, then bryophytes, pteridiophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms. See why I have been highlighting these things, because you can see the variations in the diagram. So it is again a kind of evolution. Okay. So till now you have not seen a single flower. But now you are actually at the end, what you are seeing, you are actually seeing the flower development. So that means it is also, these organisms are also still present, but they are showing an evolutionary relationship also. Okay, so these are the five classes that you can see in under the plant kingdom. One is algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. In this video, I will be explaining you about the algae. And in the another two videos, I'll be talking about the bryophytes as well as pteridophytes. And in another last video, I'll be talking about the gymnosperms and angiosperms. Okay, no more confusions with these things. So please be tuned, stay tuned till the end, because at the end, I will be solving some of the questions which were asked in the previous exams of Neet, and some of the questions that might ask in the coming exams also. Yeah. So yeah, coming to the algae. So algae, they are actually the chlorophyll bearing. So what do you mean by chlorophyll? I mean to say where exactly you will find this word. So if any plant having chlorophyll, that means they are able to produce their own food. Right. So chlorophyll is actually a pigment which helps in the synthesis of own food, preparing of own food. Right. So that means these algae are actually autotrophic in nature. That means they're able to synthesize or prepare their own food. These algae are also simple living and thyroid. Thyroid is nothing but you are unable to differentiate between the root as well as shoot of a plant. So algae as such, like you cannot easily differentiate by like if you see from far, you'll not be able to differentiate what is root and what is shoot. So basically that type of character. And they are largely aquatic. So you will find them in both this thing, both freshwater as well as marine water organisms. Clear? So this is basic about the algae. So not only that, you'll also see algae. This is all about algae being individual. But algae also show a symbiotic relationship between other living organisms. Okay. So where all the places you will actually find the algae. So one is you will see the occurrence of this algae in varieties of habitat, such as in the moist stone, soil, wood region, and all. You'll also find the algae. As I told, they show a symbiotic relationship between, so with the fungi. Okay. So example, lichens. So here you can actually see there is actually a symbiotic relationship of the algae with the fungi. Okay. So what do you mean by symbiotic relationship? Or it shows an association with the fungi. So both are mutually benefited. None of the organisms are harmed. So here what happens, the fungi, it gives the shelter to the algae. So whatever the moisture which is required, nutrients is required, will be provided by the fungi to the algae. So in return, algae, since they can synthesize its own food through the photosynthesis, right? So it will utilize all the moisture thing that is being given by the fungi, nutrients which is given by the fungi, and in return, it is also going to provide the food to the fungi. This is one point. So when it comes to animal also, you can see an association with the animal, such as if you have seen this animal, it is actually called as Lord Bear, and it is very slowly moving animal. Okay, so this animal is going to give a shelter as well as moisture contained for the growth of the algae. So this is one point. So now you can see this animal being what kind of color? Green, right? So that means it actually gives a camouflage. Camouflage is nothing but like it is kind of camouflage is nothing but uh, what do you say, that it is becoming a part of your other external environment. So in turn, I want to say you that means you will be unable to differentiate what if you see from very far, okay, you'll be unable to differentiate whether it is actually an animal there or normally a plant. Have you seen the chameleons and all? So what do we see, what do we say to the chameleon? Or rang badalta hai. That means it actually changes its color. It's not like that. It actually you cannot differentiate whether, or you cannot identify whether the chameleon is present on tree or not, because chameleon, it shows the same exact color as the tree. So now what happens, you will be unable to differentiate, so that is called as camouflage. The same thing when it will be moving in the trunks of the tree or on some grasses and all, because of the color, one will be unable to differentiate. So this is called as camouflage, and it could be beneficial from the predators to this animal. Okay, in this way, there is actually a mutualism has been there. There is a proper association is there between these two organisms. So this is about the algae. So algae is not of the same size. It's just right. So obviously, so based on the form and size of the algae, there are highly variable. That is, there are different kinds of algae can be seen. So one is green algae. So example, this thing. Volvax is an example. Ulithrix is an example. Concentrate on the diagram, because many times, questions were also being asked based on these diagrams. So whenever you are just reading them, make sure that you know exact examples. For example, these two species of algae, belongs to green algae only. So this thing should be there in the mind. And what kind of diagram is it? So this diagram actually represents the Volvax, and this diagram represents what? Ulotrex. Clear? Good. So the next one is about the brown algae. Sorry. Yes. So the next one is the brown algae. So coming to the brown algae, you are seeing the three diagrams, right? So one is laminaria. So this is the laminaria. The second one is fucus. And the last one, this diagram represents dictota. Dictota. So why I'm just trying to stress these things, because based on diagrams also questions might be asked. So make sure that you are observing the diagrams properly. The last one is the red algae. So here two different species have been given. So the first one is Porphyria, you can see here, and the next one is Polyspheria. Okay, so fine. So that means according to their form and size, there are highly variable, algae can be seen. One is green algae. Then the next one is brown algae. And the last one is red algae. So one by one, we will try to see. That is, we will study green algae. We will also study brown algae. We will also study about red algae. So since the color is varied, that means characteristics will also be varied, right? So that means now we need to understand, or we need to study each and individual characteristics in detail. We'll see about what are the modes of reproduction in the algae. Yeah. Coming to the reproduction, algae normally, reproduce by three main modes. So one is vegetative, asexually, as well as sexual method of reproduction. So when I'm talking about the vegetative reproduction, it is basically by the fragmentation method. So fragmentation method means if you consider this as a algae, so a minute fragments come out from this, parental body, and it gets separated, and again a new plant develops from this fragment. Okay, so that is each fragment develops into a new thallus, just like this way. So a fragment comes out from this, and a new plant will develop, a new algae will develop. Then we have asexual mode of reproduction. Asexual mode of reproduction in sense the algae during unfavorable condition, or normally some of the algae they prefer asexual reproduction. So where they they produce these minute spores, and these spores are actually called as zoospores. Okay, so these zoospores will be actually motile in nature because of the presence of the flagella, for example, like this. And they fuse, okay. And later on, what happens? They get developed into the adult one. That means they get developed into a new, entire algae. The next thing that, as you can see in this diagram, so this is, can you guess like what kind of reproduction I'm going to talk right now? Yes, I'm going to talk about the sexual mode of reproduction. See, sexual reproduction is nothing but there will be a fusion of two gametes. So one will be obviously the male gamete and the another one is female, right? So there are three ways of reproduction can be seen through sexually. So what are they? Right. The first one is isogamous reproduction. So what is this isogamous reproduction? Sorry. So what do you mean by isogamous reproduction here? See, isogamous is nothing but, so there will be a fusion of two gametes, one is male and female, okay? But both the gametes will be of the same size. That means similar in size, okay? So they can be flagellated or non-flagellated. It depends upon the species, but there will be similar in size. That is, both the gametes, here you can see both the male gametes as well as female gametes, they are similar in size, right? So this such kind of reproduction is actually called as isogamous reproduction. So the second one is anisogamous reproduction. Anisogamous is nothing but here there is a fusion of two gametes, but they are dissimilar in size. Dissimilar in size. Okay, so you can see one gamete is larger or bigger and the another gamete is smaller, as you can see. So this is actually called as anisogamous. The last one is oogamous. What do you mean by oogamous here? Here it is actually a fusion of two gametes again, but one will be the larger. Like not one, this thing you can see here, flagella is not there. Flagella means like this type. Okay, so flagella is not there. So this is actually a female gamete. So basically what happens in some of the species, the female gametes will be large and they are non-motile, that is absence of flagella. Whereas male gametes, they will be small and they are motile. So that means presence of the flagella. These both gametes fuse together, okay, to give rise to a new algae. So such examples you can actually see in Volvax and Fucus. Okay, so this is about the three types of sexual reproduction. One is isogamous, another one is anisogamous, then oogamous. So this is clear regarding the reproduction. So algae normally follows vegetative, asexual, and sexual mode of reproduction. Again, in sexual mode of reproduction, you have three kinds. One is isogamous, anisogamous. Last one is oogamous. So this was all about how the algae generally they reproduce their offspring. Okay, after discussing this all things, we know that algae is somewhat beneficial to our humankinds, right? So to we will try to analyze or understand the useful algae, in what way they are useful to the man. Okay, algae are actually very useful to the man in various ways. What are those various ways? The first one is a half of the total carbon dioxide fixation on Earth is carried out by the algae through what? Photosynthesis. So another point they're saying that being photosynthetic, they increase the level of dissolved oxygen in their immediate environment. See, as I told you, that photosynthesis is very important for what? Decreasing of the carbon dioxide and increasing of the oxygen, right? So in photosynthesis, basically they are going to utilize the carbon dioxide, and as in, a kind of complementary, they normally release the oxygen in the atmosphere. Since algae has chlorophyll pigment, okay, they also prepare its own food through photosynthesis method. Since algae have this ability called photosynthesis, what happens is they act as a controller, okay, total controller of the carbon dioxide. So they are going to fix this carbon dioxide in the earth by absorbing them for their food. And as this thing, they are going to release the oxygen. And if these algae are present in the aquatic, medium, so they are going to increase the level of dissolved oxygen in the immediate environment. Is nothing but if the algae is present in the water, they're going to release this oxygen, in the form of dissolved oxygen in water. This is what actually they're trying to say, right? The second point says that the primary producers of energy rich components, which forms a base of food cycle of all aquatic animals. See, they are again primary producers. What are primary producers? The organisms which are able to prepare its own food, such as plants, they are primary producers. So one who consumes those plants are called as consumers, like we herbivores and all, they comes under the consumers, right? Then we have secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. You will learn this or you will read this in the ecology part, ecosystem part. So when I'm talking about the primary producers, the primary producers will always be rich in energy. That means they will always be energy rich components, okay? So they will always be rich in energy. So that's why what happens, they become a base for the food chain or food cycle. Especially they are aquatic mode. That means they act as a major food for the aquatic animals such as insects, fishes, or any major aquatic animals. So this is your second point. Many species of Porphyry, Laminaria, and Sargassum, so they are among 70 species of marine algae See, these are the major three species, which are around 70 species of marine algae. They are actually used as a food. Okay. So this is the third point. So that means algae is majorly used as food. Not all the algae can be consumed. There are some deadliest algae also. So that's why they have told like major some of these species, among are among the 70 species. That means there are around 70 species of marine algae are used. Among all those 70 species of marine algae, these are some of the species they are saying. So these are some of the species which have been used as a food. Next point, certain marine brown and red algae produce large amount of hydrocolloids. What do you mean by hydrocolloids? Hydrocolloids are nothing but they are actually water holding substances. Okay. So they are water holding substances such as algin in brown algae and carrageen in the red algae. These are the two species which are having the water holding capacity. So it releases some, produces some amount of hydrocolloids, which acts as a water holding substance. So they are being used very commercially in the industries and all to hold the water for some longer time and all. Even agar, like have you heard about agar? Agar is normally used for the preparation of jelly and some of the chocolates and all. Agar is used. Agar major role is it actually solidified the liquid media. Okay, it solidifies in a jelliest way the liquid media. So agar is used. So agar is one of the commercial product which is actually obtained by, sorry, yes. So which is actually obtained by these two species. Okay, so they are actually used to grow the microbes as one point, and as I told in the preparation of ice cream as well as jelly. What are those two species? Gelidium and Galatia. Okay, these are the two species where the production of agar normally happens by using these two species. The last one, or this thing, the last point here, another point is chlorella, which is actually a unicellular algae, which is actually rich in the protein. So the chlorella are actually used as a supplements. Okay, they are being used as the supplements basically. Even space travelers, astronauts, and all they normally use this. They intake this chlorella as a capsule because they are very rich in the protein. So this was all about the useful of the protein. There are even many usefuls and all which you can actually list down. So if you know some other benefits of the algae, comment in the message section. Yes. So yeah, do comment in the message section if you still know some other importances of the algae. Okay. All the importance of the algae. So the algae are being divided into three main classes. One is, I told you right about the green algae, then brown algae, and the last one is red algae. So yeah, they have been classified or into divided into three main classes. One is chlorophyceae, then Phagophyceae and Rhodophyceae. Okay, so one by one, we'll try to understand them. We'll try to, study them. Coming to this Chlorophyceae class, they are commonly called as green algae. So why green algae? Because due to the dominancy of the pigment, which is called as chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. Okay, so the plant body may either be unicellular, that means single celled, or they sometimes you'll find them in a colonial, means gathered together, or free living filamentous. Then the pigment, that is this chlorophyll A as well as B pigment. So they are located. So the pigments are localized in, that means they are being located in the chloroplast, proper chloroplast, just like plant. So the chloroplast may be, that is the structure or the shape of the chloroplast may be discoid or plate-like structure, reticulate structure, cup-shaped, spiral structure, or ribbon-shaped in different species. So from species to species, the shape actually gets varies. And most member of these chlorophyll these green algae thing, so they will be having one or more storage bodies. What is storage bodies? Where exactly, okay, this chloroplast is located, and there it contains a protein. Okay, this protein besides starch, so that is the body where the storage happen is called as pyrenoids. Clear? Pyrenoids. Some algae may also store food in the form of oil droplets. So that means basically what happens, the algae will normally, will be stored whatever the fruit, starch and all. So protein besides starch, like starch and protein. So instead of starch and all proteins, it is stored. Whereas in some of the algae, they are going to store the food in the form of oil droplets. This is another point. So when coming to the structure, cell wall structure, so they have actually a rigid cell wall will be present. So the inner cell wall is actually made up of the cellulose, and the outer one layer is actually made up of the pectose. Clear? So inner one is cellulose and the outer one is pectose. So this is very important. So coming to the reproduction mode, so they are either vegetative, asexual, and sexual mode of reproduction. So when coming to the vegetative mode of reproduction, again by the formation of fragmentation method, or like different types of spores are formed. So this is vegetative mode of reproduction. So in asexual mode of reproduction, it is by the formation of the flagellated, that is motile zoospores formation. So this production of the zoospores is actually called as zoosporangia, as I have already discussed during reproduction and in all over, including all these three general reproduction of the algae. I have already said about this thing. So that means the formation of this zoospores production is actually called as zoosporangia. Then in the sexual mode of reproduction, I hope you are clear with this isogamous, anisogamous, and oogamous regarding the sexual mode of reproduction, right? So all these things, it may come under the sexual reproduction. Clear? So that is, it will be considering variety in the type and formation of the sexes, and it may be isogamous or sorry, yes, isogamous or anisogamous or oogamous. And some common examples of this green algae are, uh, can you name them? I mean, based on the diagrams that I have shown you before, can you name them? One is, yes, Glycomodus is correct. And the another one is Volvax is correct. What about other? Velotropsin is correct. Spirogyra is correct. Then Chara is correct. So these are some of the common examples of the green algae, that is chlorophyceae. Clear? So this is all about the green algae. The next one is phaeophyceae. So when I'm talking about phaeophyceae, mostly they are brown algae. Okay. Right. So primarily they are actually found in the marine habitats, and they show variations in their size as well as form. So they ranges, that means they differ from their structure from the branch-like structure or filamentous form to even somewhat sporiophily branched forms you can actually see. So that means, their height ranges around 100 meters. Sometimes you can see these algae whose size also varies around 100 meters. So they actually possess this chlorophylla A as well as C. Then even additional to this, they also possess carotenoids and xanthophylls. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Their color varies from like olive green to various shades of brown, depending upon the presence of the amount of the xanthophylls additional to the chlorophyll. There are again these two things, right? So in presence of these xanthophylls, pigment as well as fucoxanthin which is present, right? So based on these pigments also color varies. Okay. And when it comes to the storage of food, food is stored as a complex carbohydrates here. So this is very important. Complex carbohydrates, which may be in the form of laminaria or mannitol. Okay. And coming to the cell structure, the vegetative cell has cellular wall, which is usually covered outside by the gelatinous coating of algin. Important gelatinous coating of the algin. Then the chloroplast, normally it contains additional to the plastids. It also contains a centrally located vacuole will be present, and nucleus will also be present in the center. The plant body is usually attached to the substratum. That means if it is a plant body, okay, it is actually attached to the substratum by the help of hold fast, okay, hold fast, and has a stalk and stem. A leaf like photosynthetic organ will also be present, that is called as the frond. So this is all about the structure. When coming to the reproduction part, it also goes vegetative reproduction by the fragmentation process, asexual reproduction mainly by the in most brown algae it is by biflagellate zoospores, again zoospores formation, and this shape of the zoospores now it might be pear-shaped structure having two unequal laterally attached flagella. So when zoospores are actually there, so obviously it will be having flagella, right? But here it will be somewhat in a pear-shaped and unequally flagella will be unequal sized flagella will you will see that. So this is about the asexual mode. Coming to sexual reproduction, it may be isogamous, anisogamous, or oogamous. Isogamous, anisogamous, or oogamous. Again, union of gamete maybe takes place. I mean, fusion of these gametes will either takes place in the water or within the oogonium, that is oogonia species. And the gametes are piriforms. That means what are the structure of the gametes? It might be somewhat in the pear-shaped structure. Bears two laterally attached filaments you can see. And the common forms, that is common examples of the brown algae might be, yes. What are the common examples? Can you like guess or remember through the diagrams that I have shown? One is fucus, then sargassum, laminariae, then dictod, yes, and ectocarpus. So these are some of the common examples. Okay, common forms or examples of the right. So coming to the rhodophyceae. So rhodophyceae are actually commonly they are called as red algae. Yes, coming to the rhodophyceae, they're commonly called as red algae. And why they're actually red in color? Because of it has a predominancy of the red pigment. So this is the red pigment which is normally present in their body. So the major of the red algae are marine in form. That means you'll find them in most of the warmy areas. Okay. And their color is in both lightish, lightened kind of well lightened region closer to the surface of the water. And also, like you will also find them, in very deep oceans also. So where even the light cannot get penetrated. So even those particular region also will get these red algae. So what is the pigment which will be present? Are physoerythrin is actually a pigment. So R5erythrin is a pigment which is normally present in the red algae and they are morely found in the warm areas. Okay. So they occur in the both lightened regions also. So lightened regions in sense. So if it is a water, so they are closely, you will find them even closely related to the surface of the land as well as water as well as in the deep oceans also you will find them where even the light will not penetrate. So this is it. So the red tally of most of the red algae are multicellular. That means the region, algae, the body structure, they are mostly multicellular in nature. And some of them have a complex body organization also can be seen. Not the simple, but the complex body organization can be seen. Why complex body organization? Because of its availability. That means you will find them even in the deep oceans also. So obviously their body is somewhat complex in nature. So coming to the food, that means the food is stored as Floridian starch. Okay. So food are normally stored as the Floridian starch, which is very similar to the glycogen as well as amylopectin and the glycogen in structure. So when you see the structure, this Floridian starch is somewhat similar to the myelopectin as well as the glycogen in structure. So coming to the reproduction, in vegetative reproduction, it is mainly by the fragmentation. When coming to the asexual reproduction, it is by the non-motile spores formation. When coming to the sexual reproduction, it is by non-motile gametes formation. Okay. So non-motile gametes means basically the gametes will be unable to move. That means they do not show any locomotion. So sexual reproduction normally occurs by oogamous. So you know this, right? There were actually, I have already discussed the three types of sexual reproduction. So the last one that is oogamous. Why I told oogamous? Because size varies one thing and both are non-motile in nature. So that's why it normally follows oogamous and it is normally going to accomplish by the completion of the post-fertilization development. Then some of the common members are Polysiphoniae and Porphyrae are some of the examples of the Rhodophyceae. So this is all about the red algae.